What's new in the lab? Today we're going to take a look at the Marshall Reissue Blues Breaker pedal. In 1988, Marshall released the Guv'nor, which at the time was a groundbreaking pedal, as it was considered the first amp-in-a-box pedal. It was designed to replicate the sound of a cranked JCM 800 amp. A few years later, based on its success, Marshall released a trio of pedals, the Blues Breaker, the Drive Master, and the Shred Master. The Drive Master was basically the Guv'nor in a new enclosure without the effects loop. The Shred Master was basically put out for the higher gain community, and the Blues Breaker was an interesting pedal because it was basically low gain edge of breakup tone. The Blues Breaker didn't do very well at the time because musically what was popular was we were coming out of the hairband shred era and going into grunge, and none of those genres really did a whole lot of edge of breakup work. The pedal basically remained largely unnoticed until years later John Mayer put it on his pedal board, and then everybody had to have one. So the original Blues Breakers, when you see them for sale, they command pretty hefty prices, around $600 and upwards from there, depending on condition, obviously, and whether the box is with it and all the original materials with it. Fast forward years later, and Marshall has reissued the entire 4-pedal series, including the Guv'nor. I don't have my Guv'nor yet. Sweetwater assures me I'll have it in June. Evidently, that seems to be the more popular pedal out of the quartet. I did get my Blues Breaker earlier than I thought I would. But they put these out and people have been doing demos on them, and I guess the demand is pretty high for these pedals. So I'm actually waiting on my Guv'nor. I'm eventually going to get the Shred Master and Drive Master. Basically what the Blues Breaker is it is I guess it was designed to emulate the sound of a JTM 45, so it's kind of an amp in a box pedal, but the tones coming out of it is what ushered in the term transparent overdrive. Basically, it doesn't have that characteristic mid-range hump that your Tube Screamers and your Klons have. So let's flip over to, I've got this thing plugged up here. And the Blues Breaker here, you have 3 knobs. You've got gain, you've got tone, and you've got volume. And along with this, I've got a couple of other pedals hooked up, so we'll go over those. I have a JHS Bonsai, and the Bonzai is set to the TS10 as a nod to John Mayer. And it's basically set for kind of a boost, mid-range boost. In other words, the volume is high and the drive is low. And then over here I have my Unobtanium. I'm only going to be using the Klon side of this, but this side of the Unobtanium is a Klon clone. I've got it in stock mode and not in the mod mode. And I have this, the gain on this set at about between 1 and 2 o'clock so that the clipping diodes kick in. Anything previous to that, you're not really hearing the clipping diodes. And the reason I've got these pedals set up is I want to see how they stack with the Blues Breaker, because Blues Breaker style pedals, like for example the JHS Morning Glory, they're an always on effect. So basically they stay on and then you add gain stages to them as you need it. So let's go ahead and go over the signal chain, the rest of the signal chain. I'm going to be using my Strat to start, but I will be moving over to Humbuckers. I'm playing through my Egnater Tweaker 40, and I have the Egnater set on the Fender tone stack setting. So it's basically emulating a Fender at this point. And that's going into my Boss tube amp expander. And in the tube amp expander, I'm using the internal IRs, and I'm using a 4x10 so that I could kind of try to emulate a super reverb here. From the tube amp expander, I'm going directly out to my Audient Evo 16 interface. That connects to the computer. The computer, I'm running Studio One, and I'm recording this with XSplit. So my dry tone And I have to mention also that I've got a Strymon Flint in the effects loop for a splash of reverb. So let's kick the Blues Breaker on. This is the setting that I found that I really like. We'll go ahead and twist some knobs here in a minute. But basically what you're getting when you kick the Blues Breaker in is a bit of a lift and a bit of edge of breakup. So I'm in my neck position pickup here. You'll see that it's very touch sensitive. So let's go over the controls on this pedal. So we'll start with the gain, and I'm going to roll the gain all the way down. And you'll see that all three of these knobs are very interactive. When I rolled the gain down, you'll see that the tone got darker and there was a volume drop. So as we turn the gain up, go back to 3/4 of the way. Now you'll notice that when you're at noon, as opposed to 3 o'clock, there's a pretty big shift in the amount of gain. Go all the way up. So I like the gain to live right around kind of between 1 and 2. Kind of gives it a little bit of a lift over there. Alright, so let's go over the tone. We'll roll the tone all the way back. Roll that up to 9. Noon. Go to 3 o'clock. All the way. Again, I like the tone to live somewhere around the 2 o'clock range. Okay, let's see what kind of volume we get. All the way down, obviously, cuts volume to the pedal. At 9 o'clock, not a whole lot. Noon, not a whole lot. Now once you get past noon is when it starts to really boost. Trying to get it back to unity gain there. So you can see this is a really nice always on pedal because you could roll the volume back on your guitar. And then roll the volume up for a little more grit, or you could pick lighter. Stop that so I don't get a copyright. So let's see how it stacks with some other pedals. Let's go ahead and kick in the Tube Screamer. So this is a transparent overdrive, the Blues Breaker, and so basically it's going to take whatever tone your guitar puts, it's going to transparently add a little bit of grit to it and kind of push it through. If you wanted to stand out in the mix, like for a solo or something like that, you could use a pedal like a Tube Screamer that has a pronounced mid hump to it. Or you could kick in a Klon. A little bit less of a mid hump there. Adds a little bit more grit. So let me show you what those two pedals sound like without the Blues Breaker in. So here's the Tube Screamer. It's actually set for edge of breakup just like the Blues Breaker, but if you'll notice, we'll set it in position 2 here. Definitely hear that mid hump when you go back and forth. And then the Klon by itself, or the Klon clone rather. Now the Klon clone actually has a little bit less of a pronounced mid. But they sound really good when you stack them together. Back to the Tube Screamer. Alright, let's play with some humbuckers. For that, I'm going to use my Ibanez hollow body. Just make sure it's still in tune. Okay, so clean sound, bridge pickup without the Blues Breaker. Middle. Bridge. Neck. Kick in the Blues Breaker. Go back to the bridge. So one of the cool tricks with a Les Paul style, or when you have two humbuckers and you've got separate volume and tone for each, you can roll the volume back on the neck pickup and clean it up a bit, and then you can flip to your bridge for a little bit more crunch. So how does this stack up with some other drive pedals? Let's kick in the tube screamer. Kick in the Klon. I actually kind of like the Klon better in that situation. Not a big fan of tube screamers with humbuckers, to be honest with you. I think they sound incredible with Strat style guitars or Telecasters. But when it comes to humbuckers, I think they just kind of mud everything out, to be honest with you. I mean, I imagine you could get them set properly, and where I would use them in the context of a humbucker is if I was playing through like a Mesa and I wanted to tighten up that low end. I would certainly throw a tube screamer on the board, crank the volume up, the gain down, set the tone to taste, and that would basically tighten up that, for your chunk picking, Playing around with this earlier, I'm going to turn the Blues Breaker off, and let's go to the gain channel of my tweaker. Sounds pretty good. Go back to the clean in the Blues Breaker. And I'll kick in the gain channel, leave the Blues Breaker on, and it actually sounds pretty good. It doesn't add a whole lot to it, but You can see it kind of livens it up a bit when you have the pedal on. So it's a good pedal, edge of breakup, so you can go from completely clean to edge of breakup for good picking dynamics. Roll the volume on your control down if I can find the volume. There we go. Clean it up. And then leave it on, kick in your drive channel. It doesn't add a whole lot of noise to it. It kind of livens it up a little bit, gives you a little bit more sustain. So that's the reissue of Marshall's Blues Breaker. I'm going to be doing another demo real soon when I get my Guv'nor, hopefully in the next couple of months. And I'd like to see how those two pedals actually stack up together. Blues Breaker for your edge of breakup tone, and then you kick in the Guv'nor for your crank JCM 800. I think it's good. They're going to work really well in tandem, to be honest with you. And eventually, I'm going to get the Drive Master and the Shred Master, but the Guv'nor and the Blues Breaker were the ones that I was really, really interested in, especially the Blues Breaker, because a lot of people like Analog Man and JHS and others, Wampler, they actually do pedals based on this topology for that transparent, edge of breakup tone. I do have a Wampler Pantheon, and in certain setting that's basically based on the Blues Breaker topology. His pedal gives you a presence like a Marshall amp would have, and also adds different clipping diode options and 3 different gain stages. But with both switches down, it's a Blues Breaker basically, just with an additional options in the tone stack. So really, really great pedal. I'd recommend it. But I had to get this so I could see what all the hype was about, see what the OG sounded like. So I actually like it. It does a thing. For sure, so I could see why people use it on their board. Again, sorry for the sloppy playing. The goal of this video is not to showcase my playing, thank God, because I've failed miserably in that respect. The goal is to go over what the pedal sounds like and to give you an idea of what it's going to sound like in the average home studio. I don't have the equipment that the pros have, and they can make a ham sandwich sound good, when you're dealing with, pretty expensive equipment and vintage amps, I'll just pull my Vox AC30 from 1965 or my, my 67 Marshall Plexi off the shelf, and we'll demo with that. And it's like, yeah, nobody has that equipment. You get the pedal home and you're like, it doesn't sound like Pete Thorne's video. Well, no, it's not going to. So anyway, I kind of wanted to, I like to demo these pedals. You can see how they sound like in your average home studio, with the average player. So anyway, I really appreciate you watching. Looking forward to putting out the next one. Please leave a comment if you want. I always like to hear constructive criticism. So again, thanks for watching and have a great day.